So, have you watched this show, Outlast, on Netflix? If you're checking this video or this segment, I'm sure you probably know of it or looking it up at the very least, or you're curious. Either way, it's it's basically Survivor meets Alone. It's a competition of I think, 16 people. It's 16 people, four teams that are competing for $1 million. And in order to win, you have to be part of a team, so you can't win individually, but you can win. You know, I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to spoil it, but you can win with I think as little as two people. It just has to be. You have to be in a team. You just can't. And once you're alone, you have to join a team or you're done. I was giving the show quite a bit of a watch. I got through to I think about episode 6, and then it jumped the shark completely for me, and I had to drop it like a hot dumpster fire. Here's why. Here's a article by TV Guide. I'm gonna read through. Spoiler alert right away. I'm gonna basically give away. I'm not gonna give away who won. I don't think anyway. But I'm gonna give away some parts of the show. So if you really don't want me to ruin it, maybe go watch the show, come back and watch what I have to say about it, and comment or whatever you want to do. But spoiler alert, here it comes. So Netflix Outlast, Jill and Javier discuss what really happened at that camp standoff. So as the mastermind of Alpha team, so there were 4 teams. There was Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. As the mastermind of Alpha team, one of the 4 squads of 4 competitors whose goal was to survive as long as possible in the wilderness of Alaska with nothing but basic tools and their wits. Jill was directly involved in the most shocking moment of Outlast's first season and one of the most memorable standoffs in reality television. Weeks into the competition with 2 other teams struggling, Alpha team sprang into action, stealing the sleeping bags from Delta, a team of 2, no small crime given that nightmare temperatures in that area were dropping below 30 degrees, and raiding Bravo, a team of 1. This forced contestant Javier Colon to try to be in 2 places at once to protect his shelter or his raft, a crucial item for navigating the valley and getting food, while Jill and one of her teammates, Amber Assay, destroyed whichever item he couldn't protect. Alpha's team actions drew outrage and disbelief from other teams who had considered Outlast to be a test of survival skills and not ruthlessness. As exacerbated player Don Nelson, one of the victims of sleeping bag theft, said while watching Alpha stalk Javier, "This isn't about survival, it's about who's the fucking meanest." Depending on your viewpoint, it was either an act of extreme cruelty or fair play according to the series' incredibly lax rules. As Outlast's critics explain, the only listed rule is that competitors must be in a team to win, a mandate placed in order to drum up television-friendly drama from individuals used to working alone. So when it says that, this is what's irritating about this show. It says there's no rules, essentially. So you can just go ahead and steal off people and you can do whatever. But if you're gonna go with like lax rules, and you're gonna steal off people, which in society is illegal. Assault's also illegal, but in this case, assault should be just as legal as theft is. So if somebody's stealing from me and I catch them, I should be able to punch them in the face. But as you can see, if you've watched this, you'll know that none of that could happen or would happen. Or, if you're a decent individual, would you have done it anyway? I mean, but at the same time, it was just infuriating to watch. You'd have to take my word for it unless you've watched it. But for producers, letting things play out, even if it meant some teams used extreme measures as long as player safety was ensured, was vital to the spirit of the game. As much as Outlast was about who won, it was also about how the game was played. We wanted to keep the rules very vague, not vague, but very simple, because I wanted people to be able to do what they felt they needed to do to win. Executive producer Grant Collar told TV Guide, "Did I think it would go this far? No, of course I didn't. Collar assumed that safety was a primary concern and that interventions did happen if the crew, interventions did happen if the crew thought things were getting too heated between contestants. I don't agree with that. I don't think they did, because it was getting pretty heated at one point and they didn't seem to do anything. I thought it would have done the whole experiment a huge disservice to change the rules mid-game, Again, did we set a precedent that's unfair? I still don't think so, because I do think that's part of the game," he said. Excuse me. "If people were behaving badly or not treating each other with respect, I didn't feel it was my or the producer's place to change how people played. While Jill admits she came up, Jill is one of the goofs that were up to the misdeeds, we'll say. While Jill admits she came up with the plan to sabotage other teams, she never suggested stealing sleeping bags. She recommends grabbing an axe or the fire starter. Justin Court, the third member of Alpha, came up with stealing the sleeping bags on his own in what is one of the funniest moments from the season, as Court fashioned his own makeshift ghillie suit and took the sleeping bags while Bravo was off scavenging. Jill was just as surprised as viewers were by Justin's actions. By the time I found out Justin came back with the sleeping bags, that was when it all sunk in. Like, oh my gosh, he went the extreme. He wiped them out. Perhaps emboldened by the success of Justin's mission and seeing easy prey, or maybe just because she didn't like Javier, Jill next set her sights on Bravo Camp, as Javier was the lone remaining member of that team, but Javier saw it coming and took action. So what had happened is Team Bravo with this Javier guy and another guy, I forget what his name was, Brian or something like that. Brian had decided in the morning he was going to quit. You quit by just shooting a flare up in the air and they come get you. So he was on his own. So he would have had to find a team to join. So they saw him as prey, I guess. I couldn't tell that Justin, Jill, and Amber, or I could tell that Justin, Jill, and Amber were terrible people when Brian and I first encountered them along the riverbank in front of their campsite as we were hiking towards the crab pots. Javier wrote to TV Guide, they actually suggested stealing all the crab pots to make things more difficult for the other teams. Immediately after that encounter, I warned then Bravo teammate Brian that they would likely be stealing our things next. To make that more difficult, Javier took action. I wrapped up our little shack with fishing nets to confuse Jill and Amber when they came in for an attack, and that's exactly what happened. Jill got frustrated by the nets, and she wasn't able to steal my personal items and sleeping bag before I caught up to her at my campsite. It was a moment that brought the game to a halt as Delta looked on from across the river. So what had happened, just some summary, 2 members from this Delta team were going to merge with this guy Javier from the Bravo team. And so they were in the midst of that. And this other team, the idiots from Alpha team, were messing with them to try and stop them from doing that. So it was a moment that brought the game to a halt as Delta looked on from across the river. Javier raced to his camp to protect his gear from Jill, while Amber beelined for Javier's raft. Jill and Javier had at it, with Javier calling Jill weak and a cheater, claiming she couldn't win the game, how it was meant to be played, so she resorted to dangerous bullying tactics. Then Javier heard Dawn call out, "The bitch, Amber, is going for your raft," and Javier knew he was in a tough situation. As Jill sees it, ousting Javier by any means necessary was about saving her team, since Bravo and Alpha shared a side of the river. Javier's presence strained resources and kept game away, as if she was going to get game. She got a squirrel. Jill says she gave Javier the option to stay in the competition by abandoning his camp and heading to the other side of the river to join Charlie. She gave him the option, which she knew was a long shot due to her alliance with Charlie. Not wanting to leave anything for Jill and Amber, Javier made the decision to burn his camp to the ground in a statement that was as much about playing the game as it was about what he thought of Jill and Amber. Javier would end up leaving the game after Charlie, the team Charlie, rejected his request to join and get payback for Alpha's actions, although he really thinks he could have won the game if it weren't for Alpha. So that's all I'll read about it. It goes on a little bit more about what their opinions of each other were. But if you've watched this, I don't know, I think you probably would share my frustration, because in the real world, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to create like a Lord of the Flies sort of thing here. If you've ever read The Lord of the Flies, or you're familiar with it at the very least, you'll know that what happened was a bunch of kids got shipwrecked together on an island, and then they had to figure out how to build basically a society within themselves, and they chaos. Everything erupted to chaos, right? They were just trying to kill each other and all this stuff. Kind of what they suspect would happen to any society, any people that if society were to break down. Anyways, they were trying to kind of create that here. But what's irritating about it is you've got this idiot woman threatening this guy. I don't know. I live in the real world, and if that were happening outside of any kind of constraints of societal constraints, he'd probably just grab her and bend her in half. Like, you're going to come steal my stuff and try and essentially kill me by stealing my survival things, and I'm not going to defend myself. So it was just stupid. He's not acting in a way to defend himself properly, because he can't, because his hands are tied. But these idiots are just acting in any way they can. So it was just, it was ridiculous. It was just ridiculously set up. It was just very frustrating to watch. Now they're coming out with a season 2. I don't know how that's going to go, but I don't know. I was so frustrated. I just literally had to turn it off. I don't know what you think about this. If you know of this episode or you watched it yourself, let me know in the comments. I don't know if I'm going to go back to watch it, the leftover of it, but I may, just for curiosity, to see how it finishes, since I kind of know already, and then maybe give season 2 a try just to see if they shored up some of this bullshit. But I don't know, man. It kind of went south for me really quick.